Hello. So this is our third video, and we're just gonna jump right in and talk about my class.
Yeah.
Since you watched my video, and maybe you can start.
Okay, sure. Yeah. First off, again, thank you for letting me watch the video. It's always good to see how you're progressing in your course. So I've wrote notes again. So if you don't mind, we can go through these just one by one.
Okay.
So first off, I want to make a note that I know that this lesson's, the main point of it is to try to hit standard 4 and standard 5, right? But I just want to say that I was really happy to see that you are still incorporating standards 1, 2, and 3, right? Because I know that when people do these things, they tend to see, okay, I need to do 4, 5, so I'll just focus on that and maybe forget about this. But you continue to do this, and obviously as teachers, we want to be hitting most of these all the time, right? So, you know, you continue with the positive reinforcement and creating a good environment for the kids. I saw that you did the rules again at the beginning of the lesson.
Yep.
So yeah, just wanted to note that at the beginning. So first off, with standard 4, okay, so we got content knowledge. So first off, I felt like you presented it really clearly.
Okay.
I don't know if it was because of the comments I said last time, but you used the TV this time, which was great.
Thank you.
And that actually leads to my second point, which is a much better use of technology, right? So the TV and whatever, but then also the iPad.
And also
Right.
real objectives too, so I incorporate both.
Okay, yeah. So really happy that you did that. So multiple explanations and representations. So you utilize both physical items and the technology to explain the content and reinforce what you're teaching, and to make it also accessible for all students. So this is really good. So the next one is academic language. Right. So there are multiple opportunities for the students to obviously speak and to use the academic language that they're learning within the class.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
I think the thing is, I wanted to the object is to teach them about beach related and non-beach related, and also some nouns, and also verbs about beach related, like scoop or dig.
Yeah,
right?
Language that they could use during the class, like they
Right.
did when they were outside. And of course, that's what I meant. Sorry,
Oh,
when I
okay.
said the use of academic language. And then prior knowledge and misconceptions. So the lesson built on the students' prior knowledge, things that they'd already been learning, and then you could focus on some of the things that maybe they didn't understand. And then just finally, I wrote for standard 4, real-world connections. So in this part, what I mean by that is the transition. So you did another transition class, which is great. We spoke about it with your last lesson, right? You took the kids outside. You begin here, and then you move outside, and give them an opportunity to do what you're kind of teaching them, right?
Right,
The real-world experience to see, okay, I'm playing with sand, right? I'm finding the
right.
shells, the objects, things like this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was what I wrote for standard 4. Do you have anything that you would like to add for standard 4? That you felt like I missed, that you want to mention that you...
So I think for content delivery, I think because I have different students, which some of them with special needs, and some of them are ELL. I try to minimize the Chinese language using on this video, because last time we talked about maybe we can teach the keywords in bilingual, in Chinese and in English first, so they know. And then when we start repeating those words, I just only say English, which that's what I did. Before the class started. So that way I kind of build them a prior knowledge about what we're diving into. So they already know, and then we've been talking about summer theme for about a week. So they already know some of the words and some of the summer related. So for some of my special needs kids, I try to incorporate a lot of interactive activities in there. So I would always give them real item, or I would ask them to come up to point the TV or interact with the TV. I was also giving them iPad as well. So when I'm outside, I brought the iPad. Yeah. But the only thing was, I should have asked help from my co-teachers, because I was holding the iPad, I was filming myself, and also talking to kids, which was a bit messy, and then it was a bit hard for me to do. So I would maybe try to.
I think that's okay though, because under normal circumstance you would not be filming, right? You would just be focusing on doing that.
Yeah.
Right? So I think for anyone viewing the video, I think that's understandable, right? All right, so critical thinking. So the students were encouraged to think critically, and obviously to explain what they're doing, right? To use what they've taught, and then verbally to try to kind of explain it. I think that was really good. And then just the last thing is you're just touching on that I wrote here was just touching on global issues. So trash in the oceans, and things that they could be done better. And also, another thing you mentioned within the lesson you showed them was different types of sand. Like different places in the world have different types of sand and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was what I wrote down.
Okay.
Anything you'd want to add?
Yes, because I think like for standard 5, there's like a multiple perspective and interdisciplinary themes, which I did provide immediate feedback when utilizing the feedback, and then monitor them, adjust my instruction. So like when I explain things, saying like, oh, beach related and non-beach related, if I figure like for example, there was one part which some kid were saying like, oh, stone is non-beach related because they think it's like a natural item. But then I was like, wait a second, maybe go back and show them the PPT, which I have a picture that had a stone, like rock in the sand.
Right.
So I was like, oh, look at this picture. Is there a stone? And then they were like, yeah, there is. So they actually understand it. And then for my changing of or adjust my instruction, I think at the end I let them present, and I had a thing called exit ticket, which they had to come up and then they have to interact with the PPT, click their name, and then it goes to the bucket, and they're like, oh, okay, so I asked you a question, what did you find and how did you find it? Can you explain to me? And based on their different ability and their language proficiency, I would ask different questions. Sometimes I ask open question, or sometimes I would just ask a closed question so they can answer me yes or no, or just like a simple word or two. And then I didn't have time to show everybody, so I had to only cut it out and show like maybe 3-4 students. So, but I did for everybody though. I did the presentation for everybody, and some kids I asked them to take a picture using the iPad. Actually use the technology and how to take angle, which angle to take a picture, and zoom in or zoom out. And for some kid, I just be like, okay, I'll take a picture, or I already took a picture. How about you just swipe left and right and tell me which one you found. So I would change my instruction based on their level, and that's something that I did. And I found it was very helpful as well. And for the culture, I did include different things, which they were very interested, and they were just yelling out the color of the sand by themselves. I was so surprised. So and I was like, oh, this, and then one of my kids said like, oh, this orange sand, I've been there. I was like, yeah, this is in San Francisco. And then he was like, I've lived there before. So I was like, yeah, that's really, really cool. So and then one of my other kid, he's Australian, and then there was like a different white sand in Australia. So I was like, oh, maybe next time you go there, you can plan a trip there, and you can come back and tell us a story. So that incorporates their family in there as well, so kind of like encourage them to talk with their experience with their family. So that can be like a joint activity that
like an activity that can bridge the homeschool gap. Right? So you want some feedback, right? Some for the next lesson, some things that I think you could do better. I mean, the lesson was overall great. I don't have too many things to pick at. I just think that the final part where you tried to do the kind of real world connection with the pollution and the objects that are not necessarily at the sand. We could maybe do that. Put more emphasis on it, or put it at the beginning of the lesson, so that when you transition to the sand pit, right, or the real world connection, maybe they could find these things there, or they could.
They could actually pay attention to it.
Yeah, and they could, and you could. That's another chance to reinforce, like, oh, what have you found there? That's not supposed to be there,
right?
And then give them another opportunity to, use that.
So sort of like a prior knowledge before they actually go into it, and so that way when I introduce the pollution, they actually know what I'm talking about instead of
you could do it that way. Yeah, you could. What I meant then is like you could what I originally was trying to say is that you could use that part at the beginning, right, and then give him another opportunity for real world experience. But
Right.
you could also do it the other way, which I'm assuming what you just meant then, which is that you place these objects there, right, and they find them and they're like, what is this? And then when you get back and you do that part, you could say, oh, you see, this is pollution. It was not meant to be there. That's what you meant, right?
Yeah.
I think both ways could be acceptable. But, because that's a big issue and it's just thrown at the end of the lesson.
Right, yeah.
Whereas if we put it at the beginning and we give them more opportunities, right? Because for me personally, anything when I'm trying to create the kind of, okay, this is the academic language that I'm trying to teach, I try to put it always at the beginning.
Okay.
I don't want to put too much new things at the end.
Okay.
Right? Because it gives them such a short period of time to kind of understand it.
Right.
Yeah. That's just my personal kind
Which is true. I felt like the last bit of the lesson was a bit rushed as well.
Okay.
It was not enough time for me to elaborate everything. So it was a bit like they were like, okay. So which I know they didn't really have a deeper understanding of that. So obviously I did include some technology, which I did use iPad, but I use it in a very basic way, like taking pictures and showing the picture and video. But is there any way that maybe some other ways I can use it?
So obviously it depends upon the content that you're teaching, right? But there are a lot of resources out there. So there are apps, there are music, there are different things like the photo thing, right? AI, great thing to use these days, right? You can use different AI apps that when you take photos of things, it can actually tell you what it is or where it comes from or whatever. So obviously, depending on the content that you're teaching, you're going to need to do a little bit of research to find which specific thing might be useful for that. But I think AI, in fact, is a really good thing. So I can just give you one idea. When we're teaching the theme about Three Little Pigs, right? So a lesson that can be done with the use of computers and AI and whatever is you get the kids to explain what they want in the story, right? And then you give those prompts to the AI, and the AI makes the storybook for you. So the class is creating the book in one class.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, so, and there's so many AI resources now, right? This is just one way that you can incorporate technology, But of course, depending on the content, probably need to do a little bit of research prior to see what's useful.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. See you next time.